Well, good morning and welcome to all. Hopefully you can hear me, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. This is a tough one for me to open compared to previous ones, but we are here to remember and continue to honor the achievements of Evan Liblit and express our combined and unified passion for the challenge of modern and effective waste management, and our efforts to protect the environment and the beautiful gift that is Long Island. And I must say that because I'm a rather weird chap, I love going to the Liblit breakfast. It's a little different this year, but why? Well, I think the answer should be obvious. This is a room full of some interesting and often delightful bunch of characters. I have really enjoyed the past 2 years meeting all of you at the restaurant. And I want to say again that I've been delighted to get to know all of you and am delighted to see you again today. But not so much here virtually, and not under these circumstances. Because I also like to go because it was important to our friend and colleague, Larry Swanson. I can't tell you how much it hurts that he is gone, except of course, I don't need to. You likely feel it more than I, having known and worked with Larry longer than I have. So I'm sorry for all of us, as we have really lost. But on the other hand, we have all gained enormously from having known and worked with Larry. And as we discussed a week ago Friday, he sure was a good human being and set an example for us to follow. I liked Larry a lot, in part because of the dog thing, and in part because he loved Long Island as much or even more than I do. And I really do. So we can remember Larry and honor him by taking good care of it. So in kicking this thing off today, I'm going to channel some of Larry's thoughts. As in previous years, Larry prepared some thoughts for me to express, or they were suggestions, and they convey some of the things that he cared about. So on behalf of Stony Brook University, Larry and all of us want to thank all of you, and particularly Charlene Liblit, for so enthusiastically supporting the Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund. I want to comment on my view of how important this topic is and was to Larry, who said to me, and I quote, "In a way, all the environmental problems we have relate to the management or mismanagement of the waste products of human activities. I am just delighted by the leadership provided by this community in sustainable waste management." So today we are celebrating this, amazingly, the 23rd year holding this awards ceremony. A fantastic accomplishment. The Liblit Fund began as a graduate student scholarship in waste management, but has since been expanded to include undergraduate student awards as well, recognizing outstanding accomplishments in environmental studies and also honoring students who are undertaking a sustainability project. And we celebrate the connection of the Liblit Fund to the sustainability programs in SoMAS. The business of waste management is obviously an extremely complex enterprise. And having our sustainability students engaged with these challenges is truly exciting and important. And as Dean, I really appreciate that Larry was a supporter of the sustainability division in SoMAS. So again, it's a great pleasure for me to meet many of you and to learn about the impressive accomplishments of our Liblit scholars and their unbridled enthusiasm. I heartily thank you for your support of the Evan Liblit Scholarship Fund, our programs, and our students. So of course, it's appropriate to me, for me to close with a prayer. Dear Lord, please let us have breakfast together next year. Amen to that.
You're here.
Let me turn it back over to Frank. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes, thanks, Shep. I'm honored to present the inaugural Dr. R. Lawrence Swanson Environmental Stewardship Award to the Swanson family. Since 2002, this award has been presented annually to the individual, or in some cases, an organization that the Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund Committee wanted to recognize for their beneficial contributions to the Long Island environment. In years past, Larry presented this award at our annual breakfast. The Liblit Committee unanimously decided that, given Larry's decades of contributions to enhancing our global environment, rebranding this award and renaming it in honor of his significant environmental accomplishments was most appropriate. For those joining this award ceremony on their cell phones, and to those like me who struggle with reading from a computer monitor, let me read the inscription on the plaque. It reads as follows. This inaugural Dr. R. Lawrence Swanson Environmental Stewardship Award of Long Island is hereby dedicated to the memory of our friend and colleague, Larry Swanson. In appreciation of his leadership in the protection of the environment and his service to Stony Brook University. This award shall be henceforth granted in recognition of those persons and organizations whose achievements of excellence approach the standard Larry exemplified in his lifetime of service. Presented by the Evan R. Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund, December 2nd, 2002. It's truly unfortunate that Larry is receiving this award posthumously, but on behalf of the Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund Committee, it's my honor to present the Swanson family, Dana, Larry, and Michael, with this award. Thank you. Would the Swanson family like to make any comments?
Well, I just wanted to thank you guys. This is a huge honor to my family and also, of course, to my father's memory and hard work. And I'm definitely looking forward to hearing about all the great stuff the next generation of marine scientists will be doing from your department.
We have Dana here on my cell phone because she had a Zoom problem. So I think she had a quick something. Dana?
Yes, I'm sorry Zoom can't show all your faces for me, but I feel your love and thank you very much. And I am so terribly sad that it's really difficult for me to even speak about it at this point. I'm just shattered. It's hard to be without him, but thank you so much for this award because it helps perpetuate all the things he stood for. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Cahill. I am the chair of the steering committee for the Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund. And it's my privilege each and every year to take part in the selection process for our scholars. Ordinarily, I do it with Dr. Rothwell and Dr. Christine O'Connell. This year, after Christine had a problem and could not join Frank and I in our interview process, and Larry Swanson stepped up and with no notice, jumped in and took an entire day, and in interviewing everyone. And, you know, we always have a tough choice every year on who to select because we have always gotten really remarkable people to apply for our scholarship. And we've been very lucky in being able to award our scholarship to so many good people. This year was even tougher. We had the three of us 3 days of discussions after we concluded our interviews, and we went back and forth, you know, examining the remarkable attributes of all of our candidates, and we couldn't agree. We had intended to award 2 undergraduate scholarships and 1 graduate scholarship, but we just didn't get that unanimous vote that it usually takes Christine and Frank and I some time to get there, but we usually did. This year, maybe it was Larry being his usual dedicated and, you know, humorous self, but he didn't want to, you know, we never got a consensus, and we went around and around, and on Friday we finally had our last call, and it was Larry who said, you know what, we can give an extra scholarship. Let's do that. So we ended up giving not 3 scholarships but 5 this year, and we're very happy that we did. And you know, because we have 5, we're going to have to truncate our ceremony a little bit. And ordinarily, we have the advisors of our students to say a few words, but today we are, you know, kind of constrained for time. So I'm going to introduce to you our 2020 Liblit Scholars with a brief excerpt from some of the letters of recommendation that we got from their academic advisors, and maybe hopefully give you a sense of the kind of people that we were lucky enough to find this year. So I will start with the 2020 undergraduate scholars for the Liblit Liblit Memorial Scholarship Fund. And the first individual I'd like to single out is Ms. Sabrina Holsborg. Sabrina received a letter of recommendation from Dr. Swanson. And Larry, after pointing out that Sabrina had entered the university as an SVU presidential scholar and had been on the dean's list every semester since she arrived, and having managed a bakery during her time at Stony Brook and worked on an organic farm. And not least, she has been a member of the Stony Brook University Marching Band throughout her Stony Brook career. But Larry said of Sabrina, I can't think of a more deserving person to receive the Liblit Undergraduate Academic Environmental Scholarship than Sabrina, as demonstrated through academic achievement, working in relevant environmental and waste management jobs, and her overall enthusiasm to make the world a better place environmentally. And Sabrina, Caitlin, I hope you can bring Sabrina up and allow me to offer my congratulations and encouragement for the future.
Hi, my name is Serena Holswork. I'm a senior here at Stony Brook, and I'm double majoring in environmental studies and economics. Additionally, I'm a proud member of the Spirit of Stony Brook Marching Band, as well as a freelance music teacher. This past summer, I received the opportunity to intern at H2M Architects and Engineers in their GIS department, where I'm currently working through this semester. I've been learning how to use the Esri suite to work with municipalities on their data storage and mapping of fire districts, water districts, and tax maps. In the past, I have volunteered in the Center for Behavioral and Political Economics on the other side of Stony Brook University in their political science department. And there I was a research assistant studying political psychology and its impact on environmental policy decisions. I've also interned and volunteered at Bethel Hobbs Farm in Centereach, where I learned how to farm sustainably and organically. And I'm honored to be receiving this award, but it is very bittersweet without Dr. Swanson being here with us. He was the first person to introduce me to the field of waste management and is the one who inspired me to pursue a career in this field. I have learned so much from his courses and from doing research on he and Dr. Rothwell's waste management team last semester. I appreciate all that he has taught me and the other students here at SoMAS, and I hope to continue to use this knowledge in graduate school and in the future. His unique style of teaching and his unlimited stories made being one of his students an irreplaceable experience. He guided us to think about what we learned and how to apply it to our lives to be more conscious of our impact on the world around us. Following graduation in spring 2021, I intend to pursue an MBA in sustainability and enter the field of waste management. So thank you for this award and the opportunity to be a Liblit Scholar. And thank you to Bonnie Stevens, Frank Rothwell, Michael Cahill, and Caitlin Giglio for organizing this event under such unique circumstances.
Thank you, Sabrina. It gives me additional pleasure to introduce our second undergraduate scholar for this year, and that is Ms. Noor Hamdan. Noor is a very remarkable person, and she's currently a double major at the university in civil engineering and a minor in environmental humanities. She has worked in the environmental fields and in waste management in both her native Palestine and in Long Island since she's been here. She has impressed everyone who has come in contact with her, literally. I don't know that anybody got any better recommendations than Noor. And she's personally a very striking individual when you speak to her. Her advisor is David Taylor, and Taylor had these words to say about Noor. Noor is the next generation of students that the environment needs, an engineer who knows native plants and the cultural engagement around them. She understands and can create quality scientific solutions to environmental and waste management problems, and can follow up on that with informed and thoughtful outreach to stakeholders and interested communities. In sum, Noor is the environmentalist I want to be when I grow up, which is a pretty good way to put it. Allow me please to present to you Noor Hamdan.
Hi, thank you so much for this honor and this award. I'd like to first start by thanking Dr. Taylor, my advisor who recommended me for this scholarship. He has always been a professor I can turn to and has helped me tremendously since the moment I met him almost 2 years ago. He became one of my, if not the favorite professor, and instilled the belief in me to achieve whatever I set my mind to. His respect and mentorship for my academic career and fulfillment allowed me the confidence to seek opportunities I didn't think I could get, and I ended up getting them. So thank you, Dr. T, for always believing in me. I have been a part of research groups in SoMAS with Dr. Taylor and with Dr. Swanson and Dr. Rothwell. Dr. Taylor's research involved an anthology revolving around the different socioeconomics of Long Island and environmental justice. And I have been a part of Dr. Swanson and Dr. Rothwell's research group in waste management and waste to energy facilities on Long Island. I'm currently a senior at civil engineering, and I'm in an accelerated program that allows me to finish a master's degree a year after I graduate this spring. And I hope to continue my academic career by furthering my master's into a PhD for civil engineering, where my research interests focus on construction material sciences with a specific interest in concrete. I am interested in enhancing concrete structures with microbiology from industrial wastes to strengthen the durability and longevity of concrete structures. I'd like to thank you again for this honor.
Thank you, Noor. And let me now turn to our third and undergraduate scholar for 2020, Mr. Kenneth Rothwell. Kenny, we know is Kenny, but at the town of Brookhaven, he's known as Kenny the intern. Kenny's letter of recommendations comes not from a teacher or academic at Stony Brook University, but from none other than Mike DeGaines, environmental facilities manager at the Brookhaven landfill, in recognition of Kenny's service to the town and his immersing himself in the ins and outs of the operation of the Brookhaven landfill. Among other things, we learned from Kenny that he was able to single-handedly redirect the recycling trucks from the university away from the transfer station and into the MRF where they belong, because he spotted the vehicle coming in and going to the wrong place. Among other things, he's done a number of good things over at the landfill, and he has made his mark there. Mike DeGain recognizes in Kenny, and I quote, a rare quality of both academic excellence and the uncanny ability to make things happen. And he was very, very well regarded at the town, and we're very, very proud to recognize him this year as our third undergraduate Liblit Scholar. Kenny?
Thank you very much. So my name's Kenny. I'm a junior sustainability study major at Stony Brook University. So for past 2 years, I worked for the town of Brookhaven landfill up until April. At the landfill, I did a lot with promoting recycling education. I was the tour guide for the MRF. And I also helped a lot of other sustainability things. We implemented programs to recover reusable building materials, aerosol cans. We were able to recycle them. I worked on a lot of programs with that. And we have a program to divert food waste. We diverted over 2 tons of food waste within the past year. And I also serve on the Town of Riverhead's Environmental Advisory Committee. I'm on the recycling subcommittee of that also. And we work to promote recycling education and help increase recycling rates in the town and across the island. I also currently work part-time for Radiac Environmental Services and separating hazardous waste for reuse and recycling. And I'm also a scale operator at the Crown Recycling Facility transfer station. And we do construction debris recycling there. And in the future, I'm hoping to pursue stay in the waste management industry, stay active. Interest of mine is waste to energy ash recycling and the metals recovery from that ash, and to be able to turn after the metals removed, to turn the remaining ash into a concrete or a sub-base aggregate, like under roads and construction sites. Also interested in recycling other difficult to recycle waste such as glass and mixed construction debris. I would like to thank everyone on the committee who helped me get this award, and I really appreciate all the support. I'd also like to say thank you to Professor Larry Swanson. I was in his class this year, and he really helped me guide me through the whole process with the scholarship, encouraged me to apply, and definitely inspired me to stay active in the waste management industry and to keep moving up. And I'd also like to thank my advisor, Michael Desgaines, environmental facilities manager from the landfill. Mike helped me make lots of connections. I've been to every solid waste facility on Long Island, and Mike definitely helped me meet everyone, make lots of connections, and helped me be able to implement my ideas with the town. And I couldn't have done it without everyone here. So thank you so much, everyone, for the support.
Thank you, Kenny. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of Kenny around the landfill and at the scale house in the future. And as Paul mentioned earlier, our oldest scholarship award has been to our graduate students at Stony Brook. And this year we're pleased to have the ability to award 2 scholarships. And I'd like to first recognize maybe one of the more interesting interviewees that I've ever encountered, and that's Lisa Crawford. Lisa works with sharks, and she had a lot of interesting facts to talk about sharks and what they can do and what their remarkable healing qualities. But she has been recognized as a real self-starter in arranging her own research program, and she has basically been her own funding source and has been a great help to not only other students at the university, but even to the faculty that have helped to advise her. Lisa has, in the words of her academic advisor, Ann McElroy. She is someone who will clearly make a positive difference in our field and in the world. And I know Lisa is today partly engaged in being available for a relative who is gravely ill, but I hope she's still here. Lisa?
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you so much. So yes, my name is Lisa Crawford, and thank you very much for this scholarship and the generosity of the committee and the scholarship donors. I feel extremely honored to receive this scholarship, knowing the caliber of the students also receiving the scholarship this year and the scholars who have received it in the past and have gone on to be extremely successful. I would like to thank my advisor, Ann McElroy, for fervently supporting my research and allowing me to creatively explore my passions and search the entire East Coast for white sharks. I would not have had the success I've had in grad school without her encouragement, resourcefulness, and dedication. I'm currently a fifth-year marine sciences PhD candidate, and I study shark ecotoxicology. I came to SoMAS with a background in shark sensory biology after I got my bachelor's in marine biology, but I wanted to expand my research horizons for more impactful and broad-reaching work. And now through my dissertation research, I'm exploring the potential effects of bioaccumulative contaminants on Northwest Atlantic sharks, especially to evaluate if local Long Island shark species are experiencing additional stressors of human-derived pollutant exposure. And I'm extremely grateful to receive the Evan R. Liblit Scholarship this year, not only because of the support it will provide me as a student researcher, but because it will allow me to fund the last few analyses of my dissertation as I make the push to graduation. And so I hope to finish my PhD within the next year or year and a half. And I'm already thinking about post-graduation opportunities. I've always had a passion for teaching and academic research, but I hope to have the opportunity to also expand my skills in the realms of policy and environmental management. And so finally, I would like to thank Dr. Larry Swanson for supporting me and my fellow students from the moment we started at SoMAS. I never had Larry for a class, but when I started at SoMAS, he was the interim dean. And he was always so dedicated to the advancement of all of the students at SoMAS. And he always asked us the tough questions to help us think deeper about our research. So I hope to make him proud during the rest of my time at SoMAS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Finally, and by no means least, our second graduate scholarship award for 2020 goes to a very, very capable and qualified young man by the name of Stephen Tomasetti. Stephen was an applicant for last year's award, and he didn't get it last year, but I remember having to make a second arrangement with Stephen because he was out on a research boat the day we and couldn't get back to shore the day we initially had our interviews. And I had the pleasure of meeting him over a year ago. This year, you know, he truly deserves the award. He has become a very in his PhD program. He's become a very, very reliable and professional researcher, and has really been renowned for the quality of the data that he can pull together and bring to the study of marine sciences in Stony Brook. He was recognized by his advisor, Dr. Chris Gobler, for his authorship of a survey paper that listed and critiqued the dissolved oxygen policies of every state in the union, and wrote a paper on that was published in April, which Dr. Gobler believes will be of tremendous national and international importance in the years to come. We're very, very proud to have Stephen honored this year, and I'd like to introduce him to you now. Stephen.
Hello, thank you. I'm pleased to be here today. And it is such an honor to receive this award, especially this year. I'd like to thank the Liblit Scholarship Steering Committee, of course, that includes Dr. Larry Swanson. I'd also like to thank my advisor, Dr. Chris Gobler, who's really provided me an abundance of opportunities, support, encouragement over my years here at Stony Brook. A little about me. I'm a PhD candidate at Stony Brook University, or obviously here in marine science. I'm most interested in both the climate and human drivers of ecological change, and that includes nutrient overpollution and issues involving waste management. And so for my dissertation research, I monitor the variability of dissolved oxygen levels, temperatures, and of pH, both over short time scales, but also over longer time scales. And I look at how these changes affect, in particular, economically important shellfish species, especially in our region over here. So I like to collect high frequency observations of all of these different parameters and then pair that with either laboratory or field studies that look directly at shellfish and how they're impacted. I've worked with some of the local bay scallop populations, which, as many of us know, have had some trouble these last few years. And I monitor the heartbeat rates in association with changes in dissolved oxygen and pH. I've also got to work with blue crabs and oysters and sea scallops as well. Like Lisa, I plan to hopefully graduate sometime in 2021, after which I'll continue to work somewhere in academia, hopefully teaching and also doing more research. I really am honored to be here, and I thank everyone for your support, and thanks again. This really is a true honor for me.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen. And I don't know, at the Irish Coffee Pub, we'd be clapping and slamming our orange juice glasses on the table for our scholars. So if you want to take a half a second and give them a hand, I think they'd appreciate it. We're very happy to have them this year. And I will now turn the program over to Eric Swenson, who will introduce our speaker for this morning.
Good morning, everybody, and I'm very pleased to see the latest round of scholarship winners. I mean, it's always nice to help usher in the next generation of people who will follow behind people like Evan Liblit and Larry Swanson, and be the next leaders in the environmental field. So that's one of the reasons why I'm pleased to serve on the Liblit Scholarship Committee. But I would like to thank our keynote speaker, Dorian Dale, for agreeing to be the speaker this morning and to reflect on the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. On April 22nd, 1970, Dorian was in the driver's seat to history, helping usher in a new era for the world as one of the directors of the first Earth Day. At the time, there was no EPA, and in New York State, the old Conservation Department was a shadow of its current self, mostly concerned with hunting and fishing, and there was no SoMAS. I guess his efforts paid off because today, virtually every nation, every state, every county has agencies or departments charged with protecting the environment. I first met Dorian 38 years later when he headed the town of Babylon's Long Island Green Homes program and helped devise the nation's first residential property assessed program to retrofit homes with clean energy. For that, he gained national recognition. Today, Dorian serves as a Director of Sustainability and Chief Recovery Officer for Suffolk County. In those roles, he oversees the county's Reclaim Our Waters program to reduce nitrogen loading to groundwater and surface water. He has helped secure a 9-figure grant for sewer infrastructure and 2 7-figure grants for wetland restoration. He was also one of the principal authors of Suffolk County's Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan. He also served as Vice Chair of the Superstorm Sandy Task Force, overseeing recovery and mitigation in Sandy's wake and in the face of sea level rise. If that is not enough, he is also the Chief Strategic Officers for Suffolk County Land Bank, a surrogate commissioner on the Pine Barrens Commission, and serves on Suffolk County's Aquaculture Lease Board, among other roles. In recognition of his leadership, NYU's Stern School of Business named him as the 8th City Distinguished Fellow, and DEC placed him on their External Review Committee for their annual Environmental Excellence Awards. Last, but certainly not least, he is a member of the Association of Old Crows, and former intelligence officers. I believe this is the first time we've had an old crow address us. Welcome and thank you again, Dorian.
Well, thank you, Eric. That's a very generous introduction. I will correct one aspect because there are too many corrections that really are required, but I was not in the driver's seat. I think I might have been in the rear seat somewhere, squeezed between a bunch of other folks. But I certainly, owing to my advanced years and early engagement, have had a front row for much of really the, I think, estimable progress that we saw at that point in time and here into the future. And let me just also say before I proceed that I've had the honor of working with Larry Swanson. He headed up the evaluation of the potential for green infrastructure investments after Sandy. And in that capacity, we had any number of interactions with all key stakeholders. I don't know specifically in what way that is ultimately going to be applied by the Army Corps of Engineers, but Larry laid the groundwork for that. And subsequently, I worked with him in his capacity as chair of the Council on Environmental Quality. And I think we always had something of a bond because we have a certain shared curmudgeonly characteristics. It's obviously a great loss. But in terms of losses, you look at Evan Liblit, who passed away at approximately half Larry's age, but still managed to really achieve very estimable results. And I like in particular his observation, or the observation that was made about him, and that was that he understood that his field and subject was subject to fiscal pressures, legislative compromise, and the public's willingness to cooperate, because really those are three key elements. So when you go from being an activist, which is what I was back in the 60s and into the 70s, to actually activating and doing things, I enjoyed the fact that one of the scholarship recipients was described as being a can-do kind of guy. And I think there are a lot of exciting prospects that are coming out of some of the scholarship recipients. So you can move to the next slide. Or am I supposed to move? There we go. Okay. So very quickly, just in terms of activist background, I should mention that my grandfather was Army intelligence during World War II, subsequently served in the State Department. And when in his last year of life, the French were defeated at Dien Bien Phu, he strongly advised that the United States not insert themselves as the French replacement, which unfortunately is what we wound up doing. So by the time the war started heating up in the early mid 60s, I was, coming from that background, pretty aware of what a conceivable quagmire it was going to be. So after the Tonkin Bay Resolution was passed almost unanimously, with the exception of two senators, including Wayne Morse, who I subsequently worked for as an intern, and Ernest Greening, I went on my first anti-war march out of Madison Square Garden in June of '65 with keynoters that included Mrs. Coretta Scott King and Norman Thomas, the perennial candidate for president, socialist candidate, I might add, as well as Wayne Morse. And subsequent to that Madison Square Garden rally, which was 50th and Broadway in the old Madison Square Garden, we walked cross town to the UN, and it was kind of scary because we were confronted with a lot of the same kinds of people we see on the streets these days. Very beefy bully boy types who were calling us commies and making all sorts of threatening gestures. So I got a little taste for that early on, a little taste for how conceivably you're going to be presented with conflicting points of view, and sometimes forcefully presented with those views. Flash forward a few years, and we're in 1968. I'm graduating from high school. I'm going to college. I'm working on the McCarthy for President campaign. We know how that went, but at least we know that McCarthy was responsible for really ushering out the sitting president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, based upon his performance in New Hampshire. Subsequently, in my inaugural year in college, or actually it was my second year, was one of the marshals for the major March on Washington in 1969. And that attracted at least 500,000 people, depending on who's doing the counting. It could be well north of 1 million. So, and one final point I should add, because we are talking about several distinguished people that we work closely with that have passed away. My best man and the godfather of my son was on the New York State Parole Commission, who ultimately granted parole to Kathy Boudin, who was something of a notorious figure from that period in time, as she was a weatherman and subsequently involved with the Brinks holdup. So be mindful that at this juncture in our history, there was, I mean, conflict very much on not just the same level as we're witnessing today, but perhaps in excess. We had cities on fire. We had, you know, demonstrations at universities, you know, university building takeovers. You know, we had not just the Black Panthers, but subsequently the Black Liberation Army, who were exceedingly violent in their objectives. We don't, I don't think we've quite reached that level, but hopefully we don't proceed to do so. Go to the next slide. So one of the kind of footnotes to an era was that the first draft lottery was conducted at the end of 1969. I drew 273. It wasn't clear whether that was a number that was ultimately going to be reached. But I also, based upon my own activities relative to the war, didn't believe in having a student deferment. I never had one. I was always 1A. But as it turned out, they didn't touch me after being open to the draft for a year. So long about this time, I'm probably feeling a little bit of, shall we say, breathing room. I'm walking along and I'm seeing a notice for organizing something called an Earth Week. I, you know, come from New York City. I know and grew up along the Hudson River, so I know what an open sewer the Hudson was. I know what the air quality was like. I'm a perennial bike rider, even back in those days. And when you ride behind a diesel bus, for example, you definitely feel like you're conceivably going to die of toxins by the time you're finished. The quality of so many aspects of the environment, I think, as Eric pointed out, were just in atrocious shape. There had been movement. There obviously was the Silent Spring with Rachel Carson. There were various figures in Congress who were moving to engage. And I think the real tipping point was the big oil spill off of Santa Barbara in 1969. Notably enough, there were, in the Nixon administration, I'm going to get to this in a minute, a number of actually very engaged and aware and accomplished environmentalists. We don't see that in this current administration. I noticed that one man had a hat on in the audience that says, "Make America Green Again." I would like to see some other changes as well. But having had this level of awareness, being plugged in as I already was into all realms of political engagement, I determined, once I saw this notice for Earth Week, to see what it was all about. And principally at that point, what it was really all about was a guy named Ian McHarg, who has written, and if you haven't seen it and you haven't read it, you should pick it up, because it's really one of the really eminent works on the environment. McHarg was a landscape architect. Jack Dangermond, who's head of ESRI, credits him with being the godfather of overlays and GIS itself. So he was a remarkable figure. He headed the landscape architecture department at the University of Pennsylvania, where I was a sophomore. So he alone was a Scotchman who, drank a bottle of scotch every day, went through a couple of packs of cigarettes, and ironically enough, for an environmentalist. And he also warned as early as 1960 that coastal development explicitly in places like New Jersey were going to prove disastrous. He was of such stature that when we started putting the program together for what would in Philadelphia be a week-long Earth Week, he was able to attract some of the top figures of the time. We got the cast of hair, as you can see Sally Eaton down here on the lower left-hand corner singing about sulfur dioxide. That picture in the middle with the arrow pointing down is yours truly as an undergraduate. I was the media coordinator, and I was also responsible for this button that I'm wearing right here. Walter Cronkite and CBS News followed Earth Week all week in different areas of the country. But there was a whole one-day segment committed to what we were doing in Philadelphia. So it attracted a lot of attention. In 1969, according to polls, 1% of the populace was concerned about the environment. By the end of 1970, it was up to 25%. You can go to the next slide. So what came about as a result of Earth Week? Well, Ed Muskie was the keynote speaker. He was a fairly powerful figure in the U.S. Senate. He was really the leading candidate to run against Richard Nixon in 1972 until he kind of self-destructed, or at least the media made it look like he self-destructed. But he was the engine, and you talk about somebody being in the driver's seat, behind some of the most important environmental acts of our lifetime, and conceivably of subsequent lifetimes as well. So in 1970, we had the Clear Air Act passed. Then 1972, the Clean Water Act, which was a contentious act because it really obliged a number of regulations with which some, particularly in industry, and Richard Nixon himself, weren't particularly comfortable. NEPA came out of that. The EPA was formed as a result. And what makes this interesting is that it was, you hear the expression, China going to, Nixon going to China moment. But Nixon doing anything with the environment was frankly an even bigger surprise, because heretofore he hadn't expressed much interest in the environment. He thought that it was mostly for, well-to-do people who go backpacking on weekends in places he never liked to hang out, like public parks, for example. But he had around him some remarkable figures, including Bill Ruckelshaus, who was the first head of the EPA, and Russell Train, who was the first head of the Council on Environmental Quality. And what they managed to do, I think, was really exploit Nixon's other preoccupations. Nixon wasn't that interested in domestic policy. And he clearly was very immersed in conducting the Indo-Chinese War along with Henry Kissinger. And in fact, as Earth Day was happening, he and Kissinger were unfurling a bombing campaign in Cambodia that expanded the war even more exponentially, resulting in millions more deaths. Then, of course, a month after Earth Week, there was Kent State, which I'm sure you're all aware of, the notorious event in which the National Guard let loose and killed four students. And from Nixon's standpoint, having expended a fair amount of political capital on the environment, to only see it kind of like go south on him was problematic. But he was, if nothing else, a master Machiavellian. And so he continued to give the environmentalists around him, which, as I mentioned, included Ruckelshaus and Train, but also John Ehrlichman, his principal domestic advisor, free rein to develop what turns out, in retrospect, to be the most estimable record of environmental achievement of any president ever. And that's really quite something when you consider how little Nixon really cared about the issue. But it does demonstrate that people in subordinate positions can, in fact, see their opportunities, seize their openings, and make a difference. You can go on to the next slide. So Eric mentioned a number of the things that we've managed to accomplish. In 2006, Steve Ballone created a new position, which was an energy director. I was the lucky beneficiary of that appointment. And we, in tandem with a really, I think, stellar team, which I think included both Doug Jacob and Ron Klusner, who are on this call from Babylon, as well as Sammy Chu, developed the Long Island Green Homes program, which became really a marquee program for the entire nation for two reasons. One, because it used something called property assessed clean energy, which continues to be wielded as a fiscal mechanism to get these kinds of energy efficiency measures, realized and accomplished. But because it really, in essence, elevated the work done on the house to actually improve its efficiency above the mortgage itself, because as a former supervisor, Steve Ballone, now county executive, would like to quip, the government, in this case, the municipality, is kind of like the mob. They always get their money. And so we launched a program, and in part it was predicated, and I think Mike Cahill will appreciate this as well, based upon a large 8-figure reserve that we had for solid waste. This is how we ultimately staked at least 2,000 homes in the town of Babylon to upgrading and making their houses 25% more efficient. The challenge, of course, was, okay, we have a solid waste fund, right? How do we access that? And we came up with the I think, rather nifty 5-word solution, and that was to actually change the definition, the standard definition of solid waste, which includes all sorts of refuge and excludes, nuclear waste, for example, but to include energy waste by dint of its carbon component. Carbon being 28% of what carbon dioxide ultimately is. And as a result, we were able to access this fund and get an immense amount of work done. And I might add, it was the kind of formulation that attracted a lot of attention nationally. And I have to say that in addition to the distinction that I received from NYU, my favorite was getting flown out to the 2010 Olympics by Sir Richard Branson to talk with the Carbon War Room. It was a very heady time, and I'm going to say something that's going to be, I think, encouraging in this regard moving forward with the Biden administration teeing up to come in. There was a vice presidential white paper which actually cited our program, and even in the debates, I think they moderated it considerably. But there are 80 million houses in this country, and that doesn't include all of the building stock that could, with 30, 40-year-old technology, be made 25% more efficient. In effect, given that building stock is variously assigned 40%, for example, the national carbon footprint, you could effectively, by putting thousands, tens of thousands of people to work, saving homeowners billions, and saving immense amounts of tonnage of carbon dioxide, you could bring down the national carbon footprint by 10%. And frankly, before you do anything, and that includes putting solar on your roof, you need to seal the envelope of your building stock, because if not, then you're still wasting that conditioned air that you have inside. We move on to the next slide. So when we moved to the county, I'm not going to spend much time on this because you can really look it up, and it's drawing to a close in terms of time. But the big challenge when we came to the county was the fact that 75% of Suffolk County's wastewater is untreated. It just goes right into the ground, either flows to ground, flows to surface waters or down to groundwater, and has the kinds of untoward impacts that we've seen. Steve Tomasetti, for example, can certainly bear witness to what those results are. And so not only were we able to use Sandy recovery money to stake new sewering along the South Shore to almost $400 million, we also recognized that there was an outfall pipe coming out of our principal sewage treatment plant that was really on the verge of catastrophic failure, that we are now completely retrofitting and ensuring that does not have that fate. And on top of that, we've launched this septic improvement program and have already started to chip away at the 360,000 households that currently use either antiquated cesspools or non-performing septic tanks. And I think Dr. Gobler has played a very key role in that. We call him the Paul Revere of nitrogen loading. He has been a key partner in this regard. And we'll go on to the last slide and I'll finish up because I see Mike Cahill looking anxious at me here. Final slide. Oh. Okay, so here we are, coronavirus, the pandemic. At first, it looked like the silver lining in the pandemic was, these immense reductions that we've seen around the world in terms of air pollution. Certainly in China, it went down 25%. Delhi apparently recorded a 71% reduction. Unfortunately, as everybody starts getting geared up again, they'll probably start following China in that regard. And that is the unfortunate reality. And China is now back actually in excess of where they were before the pandemic. So, we have our marquee finger wagger here, Greta Thunberg is actually a pronunciation, reminding us that A, obviously we're not very resilient, but B, we know how to respond to emergencies. So after we get through these dark days, and I can tell you right now, the county is, once again, in the thick of responding to these circumstances, I think there will be takeaways that the recipients that we've seen on today's scholarship awards will take with them and then do the kinds of work that both Eric and myself and Larry Swanson and Evan Liblit and many others, particularly on this call, have done over the course of their career. Appreciate the opportunity and the honor to have shared a few thoughts and reflections on the past.
Thank you, Dorian. That was a very edifying address. It takes me back quite a ways, and we really appreciate it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our program. It is now noon, and we are very happy to have had you with us. My job now is to say good afternoon. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that you may go back to your invitation, and it would be greatly appreciated if you could help us replenish our scholarship fund for next year. We usually make a little bit of a boost in our fundraising at our breakfast, which we couldn't do this year, but I will echo Paul's prayer that next November we find ourselves back, as always, at the Irish Coffee Pub and could spend some time hobnobbing together. I thank you again and urge you all to stay safe, and I'm sure Larry will be looking down on us and hopefully keeping us out of trouble for the future. Good afternoon.